sometimes things will get worse before they get better. Seemingly, you know. Like, if you start taking in the spiritual teachings of the sages and realizing your true nature, you'll realize that the old nature, the old nurture systems of your brain and all of that will have to slowly decompose and die so that the new man, the oversoul, the higher self can rise. Because when you're living at a lower nature and you're conditioned to believe that you're not worth living, even, or you believe like a lot of false things about yourself, like that you're just a limited being, or that you're ugly if you're feeling like you're worthless in any sense. All of that is a complete lie because when you're a baby, you don't even think, you just experience. And it's only through the nurture of like being around parents, like, and like certain people, like, I'm not saying parents are bad or whatever, or certain people are bad, like, because no one inherently is bad as a baby, but everyone's been conditioned throughout their whole life to believe these things and take it in. Like even like Mowgli in the Jungle Book, like he was raised by, I can't remember what he was raised by, but he was raised by animals, and he danced with bears. But I know that's just a film, but there are similar stories of like girls getting raised by wolves, and they would never be afraid of the wolves because that's just their nurture to understanding to be like a wolf or to dance with a bear, you know. But if you go out in the forest, you probably see a bear or a wolf, and you'd be like, "Oh, I'm scared" or whatever because you've been conditioned that. I'm not saying it's bad not to have certain types of fear when there's danger and instincts and stuff, but recognise that everything is just a conditioning in this life. Like even Steve Jobs said, like the things that we see, everything that we see, was created from people that are no much smarter than you. Which means like you create this world by being here in the present, your true self, or being in your lower self. Like the reason why social media and everything is taking a hold of people and people are like in grief or and people are in fear is because they've been conditioned that a baby is not born in that condition. So how would how would you experience fear if you weren't conditioned for it? So sometimes things will seemingly get worse before they get better. Because when I started reading this Marahaj's book, it's like a dialogues between him and his visitors. It's called The Ultimate Medicine. But as I was reading it, I started getting really unwell, like with like a common cold, because like my lower self was like purging and dying to the realization of my truer nature, the Para Brahman, the Parama Atman nature, that God self that I came from originally and just sort of forgot, but now I'm remembering, which is the same as all of us. Like, this is why Christianity can be a bit dangerous because, like, even in the Bible, like, the teachings of Jesus is good. The teachings of the Bible are pretty much all good. But what isn't good is what isn't always good is people's interpretations, like trying to keep you in fear or a lower nature, to always rely on something seemingly outside of yourself, but the kingdom of heaven, even Jesus said, is within. So if we are all the kingdom of heaven within ourselves, then you should realise that you ain't too bad. If you've got the kingdom of heaven within you, then what could be wrong with you? You know, it's only like a dark smudge or like mist or like fog, that sort of cloud in the eternal peace and paradise which is within yourself, or cobwebs or whatever you want to visualize it as. But as you start expanding to the truth, the light of consciousness shines through the inner self and illuminates. But you see, like with all these cobwebs and like muck and like fog and mist and all that, it has to come up like through the head Sometimes being sick, sometimes like through the eyes, like feeling like droopy and red, and having a manifestation of an illness, because it's all got to come out of you to purge out. So just remember that your healing and your peace will sometimes make you a bit worse for wear for a little bit. But once it's cleared out, you'll be able to live in that peace, be able to experience the kingdom of heaven a lot clearer. So yeah, don't give up, because you're not worthless, you're not ugly, you're not all these lies and conditioning. The kingdom of heaven is eternal. But what isn't eternal is the conditioning, the nurture nature, the human conditioning, which will pass and heal in time if you're willing to let go of all that stuff. Which is why you should listen to the gurus, the sages, the saints, the angels, God, Jesus, whoever, that lives from the higher principle of that self-realized, self-knowledge, truth state, the God being. And then you'll realize that you are always free. And things will always peace. There's no need to fear if you get unwell, like to kill the body, because the body will die eventually anyway. We're all gonna die at some point, but to a sage or to a liberator being an Inyani, there is no death, because liberation and living in the kingdom of heaven is the eternal self. That is the eternal peace. So don't worry. That's why Jesus always says don't worry, because worrying can't add a second to your life. Just because you're planning and um, evaluating and trying to predict or have a hypothesis about what's going on doesn't mean that it will happen. You see on my hoodie, like, you go from the evolution, like, from monkey to um, caveman to better caveman to man to Buddha being to enlightened being, which is where we're all going. There's not going to be, like, trouble for that much longer, really, when the the darkness in the world is all elevated from our being. Like, our bodies are just a metaphor for experiencing. Like, it starts at the lower nature, like where all the lust and all the toxins go, like literal shit comes at you from the lower part, but as the higher self, where the brain is, which controls the being, which experiences and everything, the eyes, the ears, the taste, and the heart at the higher self, you have to notice that all that shit is being let go of, dropped down, and the internal energy of peace is rising. So yeah, things do seem to get a bit worse before you get better, but that's just evident in the world right now. Like, it seems like we're heading towards a lot of stuff, but we're not. We're actually heading towards a lot of goodness and awakening and enlightenment and stuff like that. Like, even people that have been very sick with mental illness, even that is like a clearing out of false beliefs, because you need to be healed. You need to go from illness to good health, and then you'll be living in that enlightened peace, basically, that ascended masterpiece, that angelic, ethereal essence, unreal but unperceivable, but is the truth, poetically speaking. But that's eternal and that's forever. Worrying isn't gonna change anything. It's just worshipping the problem. But if you pray and praise, you're releasing it, and blessings will pour into you. It's said that if you focus on the light of God, your neurons will naturally rewire themselves, even in the brain. So this whole experience is just a metaphor for our unconscious and our nurtured nature. But once all that is dropped, you'll realise, like Nisargadatta says, I am the unperceivable, I'm the unmanifest Para Brahman, God. which is the truth of all of us. And even Jesus taught this himself, so don't get at me if you're a Christian, but you've just been nurtured and conditioned to believe that we're worthless or we're not worthy of blessings, but because there's that original sin, but what is that? That's just the lie that you sinned to begin with, that you believe that you sinned. But there is none of that in the truth. So yeah, rest in paradise, people. Amen.